magnetic moment of electron revolving around nucleus of an atom. See, let me consider an atom. The charge on the nucleus is Ze. See here, electron of charge minus e and mass me is revolving around the nucleus. Let r be the radius, let v be the orbital speed of the electron. See, electron is being a charged particle. You know that a moving charged particle constitutes a current. See, therefore, what is the current generated by revolving electron? The current due to revolving electron around the nucleus is I is equal to rate of flow of electric charges constitutes the current dq by dt. See, this is known to you. See here, what is the charge on the electron? I consider only the magnitude. Charge on the electron is minus e. I just take only magnitude. Therefore, I is equal to E by T, where T is the period of revolution, where T is period of revolution of the electron. Let me call this as equation 1. But what is orbital speed? V is equal to, when electron completes one revolution, the distance covered is 2 pi r, time taken is t. Speed is distance covered by total time taken, or distance covered by time taken. Distance covered is circumference, time taken is t. Or I can write, see, this can be written as r t is equal to 2 pi r by v. Let me take it as equation 2. Substitute equation 2 in 1 from equations 1 and 2. I can write I is equal to E by 2 pi r by v, or this is equal to I is equal to EV by 2 pi r. If mu is the magnetic moment, you know that magnetic moment is given by current into area. If mu L is the orbital magnetic moment of electron, mu L is equal to I into area. I is what? I is EV divided by 2 pi r. What is the area? Area of the circular path is pi r square. What remains? See here, pi got cancelled, 1 r got cancelled. See, therefore, E into V into R divided by 2. I just rewrite this equation as E divided by 2me into me into Vr. I can write like this. I have multiplied by me, mass of the electron, divide this by me. This is mu1. See, but MVR is angular momentum, but MVR equals L, angular momentum of electron, angular momentum of electron. See, therefore mu L is equal to E by 2me into L. Or if you want to write in vector form, mu L is equal to minus of E by 2me into L. So because angular momentum and magnetic moment are oppositely directed, see, that's why I have put the minus sign. Suppose if you take the ratio of mu L by L, this is equal to E by 2me. See, when you substitute for E, how much? 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19, 2 into 9.1 into 10 raised to minus 31. So you will be getting 8.8 into 10 raised to 10 coulomb per kg. See, we call this ratio as gyromagnetic ratio. This is called gyromagnetic ratio, and it is a constant. It is a constant for electron. Gyromagnetic ratio is constant for electron. Have you got it? See, this gives you equation 3 and 4. Sorry, equation 4 gives the expression for magnetic moment of the revolving electron. So when you take the ratio of magnetic moment to angular momentum, it is a constant and it is called as gyromagnetic ratio. Its value is 8.8 into 10 raised to 10 coulomb per kg. Have you got it? Now let us calculate magnetic moment by considering angular momentum of the electron. I once again explain this. Let us consider an electron revolving around nucleus of an atom. Let the charge on the nucleus is plus Ze. Electron has a charge minus E and mass of the electron is me. It is revolving around the nucleus of an atom with orbital speed v. Since electron is a charged particle, a moving charged particle constitutes a current. So therefore, current due to revolving electron is given by I is equal to E by T, where T is the period of revolution. We know that orbital speed is given by total distance covered by time taken. See, therefore, time taken here is period. Period is equal to total distance by orbital speed. Now substitute in this equation 1, you will be getting EV by 2 pi r. Therefore, what is magnetic moment or dipole moment of the electron? I indicate that by mu L. Mu L is equal to I into A, current into area. A stands for area. Area of the circular path is pi r square. You will be getting this. I just rearrange like this. I multiply this by me and divide this by me, so that the equation takes this form. MEV into R, that gives you angular momentum L. See, therefore, mu L is given by this. In vector form, we can write like this. Here, negative sign indicates that angular momentum and magnetic moment of the electron are not along the same direction. They are oppositely directed. See, when you take the ratio of magnitude ratio of magnetic moment to angular momentum, it is always constant and it is called gyromagnetic ratio. It has a value 8.8 into 10 raised to 10 coulomb per kg. Using equation 4, mu L is equal to E by 2me into L. But so you know that according to Bohr's theory, angular momentum is quantized nh by 2 pi, where n is equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. We know that according to Bohr's theory, angular momentum of the electron is quantized. It means what? An electron cannot revolve in any arbitrary orbits. Only those orbits are permitted for which orbital angular momentum is integral multiple of h by 2 pi. See, this is called as quantized orbits, and this condition is called quantum condition. Now let us put the value here. What is the least value for n? N is equal to 1. See, therefore mu L becomes equal to E by 2me into nh by 2 pi. See, this comes out, this found to be n into E into h divided by 4 pi me. See, what is the minimum value? Minimum value of n is equal to 1. For n is equal to 1, mu L is minimum. So therefore mu L minimum is equal to EH divided by 4 pi m into E. E is what? 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. H is 6.626 into 10 raised to minus 34. 4 into 3.142. This is 9.1 into 10 raised to minus 31. On simplifying all this, so you will be getting 9.27 into 10 raised to minus 24 ampere meter square. See, this is called Bohr magneton. This is called Bohr magneton. See, this is the minimum value of magnetic moment possessed by the electron due to its orbital motion, orbital magnetic moment. See, it is indicated by, we indicate that by mu b. Mu L minimum is indicated by mu b. See, therefore mu b is equal to EH by 4 pi into me, and it is equal to 9.27 into 10 raised to minus 24 ampere meter square. See, this is the magnetic moment possessed by the electron which is revolving around the nucleus. See, this tells you that inside the atom, when electrons are revolving, it generates a magnetic field. See, therefore every atom acts like a tiny magnetic dipole. They do have magnetic moment. See, therefore magnetism is an atomic phenomenon. Magnetism of a magnet is mainly due to spin and orbital motion of electrons present in it. Okay. In certain atoms, the net magnetic moment becomes equal to 0, which cannot be magnetized. So we call them as diamagnetic. In certain materials, it is non-zero. Net magnetic moment is not equal to 0. So we call them as paramagnetic. And some are having natural dipoles, and we call them as ferromagnetic materials. See, that we will understand when you go to next chapter, right? Have you understood? See, this is about magnetic moment possessed by the electron revolving around the nucleus of an atom. So with this, we shall move on to moving coil galvanometer, pointer galvanometer. It's also called pointer galvanometer. Moving coil galvanometer. Or pointer galvanometer. You know, galvanometer is a device which is used to detect current in the circuit. It's a very sensitive device. It can be used to detect current as small as 10 raised to minus 6 ampere. Okay. So now we shall understand the construction and working of a moving coil galvanometer, about its current sensitivity, voltage sensitivity, and how we can convert this galvanometer into ammeter as well as voltmeter. How it can be converted. All these things we shall understand in this topic. So moving coil galvanometer consisting of a rectangular coil. There is a rectangular frame on which large number of turns of thin insulated copper wire are wound. See, there is a rectangular frame. There is a rectangular frame on which large number of turns of thin insulated copper wire are wound. The ends of the coil are connected to two terminals, T1, another one connected to T2. Okay, T1 and T2. The coil is pivoted between two concave pieces of strong permanent magnets, north, south. Two concave pole pieces of strong permanent magnet. A soft iron cylinder is inserted inside the coil, inside the frame of the coil without touching it. A soft iron cylinder is inserted inside the frame without touching the coil. So this will makes the field strong and radial. So this, because you know that soft iron has a very high value for magnetic permeability. See, therefore it makes the magnetic field strong and radial. A long and light aluminum pointer is attached to this coil, and this pointer is made to move on a semicircular scale graduated into divisions with center 0. Okay, with center 0. So it is consisting of a rectangular non-magnetic frame on which large number of turns of thin insulated copper wire is wound. The coil is pivoted between two concave pole pieces of strong permanent magnets. The ends of the coil are connected to terminals T1 and T2 for external connection. A soft iron cylinder is inserted inside the frame without touching the coil, which makes the field strong and radial. A long and light aluminum pointer is attached to the coil. The free end of the pointer is made to can move across a graduated scale with center 0. With center 0. How it works? When you pass current to the coil through the terminals T1 and T2, current flows in the coil in a uniform magnetic field. So you know that net force acting on the coil is 0, but it is acted upon by a torque. The tendency of the torque is to deflect the coil. When the coil got deflected, so the spring got extended or compressed. Say these two springs. So they will control the motion. So they apply the restoring torque. So and as a result, the coil come to rest at some particular position. Okay, it comes to equilibrium position. When you stop passing the current, there won't be any magnetic field produced by the coil, and as a result the spring pulls it back to the original configuration. See, that's how it works. And this can also be represented by the diagram like this. See here, this is the soft iron cylinder. Say this is the coil, this is the coil. Say this is the spring which controls it, and these are the concave pole pieces. These are the concave pole pieces, and we have a long aluminum pointer, attached to the coil, which is made to move across a graduated scale with center 0. Okay. Have you got it? See, this is the construction details. See here, the field is strong and radial. This is a soft iron cylinder. This cylinder, I have taken the cross section. I have taken only cross section of this diagram and written here. See, this is the soft iron cylinder, and this is the pointer. So cylinder. This is coil. This is soft iron cylinder. And this is the spring which controls the motion of the coil. Okay, this is the spring which controls the motion of the spring. So now let us consider the theory part. See, here is the magnetic field, and there is a coil, rectangular coil carrying current. See, you know that it is acted upon by a torque. The torque acting on it is given by torque deflecting torque acting on the coil is given by tau is equal to, if n is the total number of turns, n into B into I into A. I take this as maximum torque acting on the current carrying coil. See, this is deflecting torque. So due to that, the spring got twisted, the spring got compressed, or spring got extended. So therefore, naturally a restoring torque developed in the spring. the restoring torque or counter torque, the restoring torque acting on the coil, K into phi, where K is a constant called torque per unit twist, where K is a constant called torque per unit twist, or it is also called torsional constant. Okay, at equilibrium these two balances each other. So therefore at equilibrium torque due to magnetic field just balances torque due to restoring force or restoring torque due to compression of the spring or extension of the spring. See therefore N into, at equilibrium these two balances each other, N into BIA is equal to K phi, or I is equal to K divided by N into B into A into phi. So this tells you that the current flowing through the coil is directly proportional to deflection of the coil. Current flowing through the coil is directly proportional to deflection. See therefore whatever deflection you have seen is directly proportional to strength of current flowing through the coil. Have you got it? This is the conclusion that can be made using this equation. Now let us understand what is current sensitivity. Suppose if you take phi by I, you will get NBA by K. So this phi by I is called current sensitivity. What is current sensitivity? The deflection produced per unit current flowing through the coil is called as current sensitivity. The deflection produced per unit current flowing in the coil is called current sensitivity, and this current sensitivity depends on total number of turns in the coil. If you increase the number of turns, current sensitivity also increases. It depends on strength of the magnetic field. If the permanent magnetic field strength is high, sensitivity is high. If area of the coil is high, sensitivity is high. If torque per unit twist is smaller, sensitivity is high. So therefore, this equation tells you that you cannot increase sensitivity of a galvanometer beyond certain range. Why? Because if you increase the number of turns, if you increase the area, the coil became heavy. See therefore, torque required to turn that coil would be larger. See, it is not possible. Therefore, in practice, say we cannot increase number of turns and area beyond certain range. And at the same time, for a permanent magnet, you cannot magnetize a ferromagnetic specimen to any greater value. See, every magnetization has got its own limit. See, therefore, you cannot increase sensitivity of a pointer galvanometer beyond certain limit. Okay. Similarly, we can determine even voltage sensitivity. What is voltage sensitivity? It is indicated by phi by V. What is phi by V? It is the deflection produced per unit potential difference applied across the coil is called as voltage sensitivity. How this can be done? Say if you multiply R on both sides, denominator, say I into R, NBA divided by KR, say you will get the value. So therefore, deflection produced per unit potential difference applied across the ends of the coil is called as voltage sensitivity. This is given by NBA divided by KR. Where R is the resistance of the coil. If I indicate the resistance of the coil by G, then it will be G, right? Now, so this is about voltage sensitivity and this is current sensitivity. This is expressed in terms of deflection per ampere or division per ampere. See, this is division per volt. Okay. So they are the unit to express current sensitivity and voltage sensitivity. Deflection produced per unit current flowing in the coil is called current sensitivity. Deflection produced per unit potential difference applied across ends of the coil is called voltage sensitivity. See, this is about pointer galvanometer. A pointer galvanometer or moving coil galvanometer consisting of a rectangular frame on which large number of turns of thin insulated copper wire is wound. The ends of the coil are connected to two terminals through springs, pass par bronze springs, two springs, identical springs. And the coil is pivoted in between two concave pole pieces of strong permanent magnets. A soft iron cylinder is inserted inside the frame without touching the coil, without touching the frame, which makes the field strong and radial. A long and light aluminum pointer is attached to the coil whose free end can be made to move across a semicircular graduated scale with center 0. The same thing shown here. See, this is the soft iron cylinder, this is a rectangular coil and its motion is controlled by a spring, helical spring, spiral spring, and it is placed in between two concave pole pieces. A long aluminum pointer attached to the coil so that it can move across semicircular scale. How it works? When current passes through the coil through the external terminals T1 and T2, the coil experiences a torque. Net force acting on it is 0. It is acted upon by a torque. As a result, the coil got deflected. When the coil got deflected, a restoring force is developed in the spring, which opposes the deflection of the coil. See, at equilibrium, these two torques balances each other. See, therefore, coil remain in one particular location. See, therefore, pointer shows a particular reading on the meter, on the scale. See, therefore, at equilibrium, NBIA is equal to K phi, I is equal to K by NBA. See, K depends on the nature of the material you have chosen, nature of the spring, right? Nature of if it is made of pass par bronze, K has a particular value. If it is made of gold spring, it has a particular value. It depends on the nature of the material from which the spring has been made. Okay. And this is called current sensitivity and this is voltage sensitivity. See, this is about pointer galvanometer. What is the advantage of pointer galvanometer? It is very compact, it is a handy, it is of less cost, it can be carried from one place to another place. It has a sensitivity of the order 10 raised to minus 6 ampere. The current lesser than that cannot be measured using this device. Okay, see, that's the only limitation of moving coil galvanometer. See, now let us understand the conversion of galvanometer to voltmeter and ammeter. Let's understand what is an ammeter, what is a voltmeter, how our galvanometer, pointer galvanometer can be converted into ammeter or voltmeter. Conversion of galvanometer to voltmeter. What is a voltmeter? Voltmeter is a device used to measure potential difference across any 2 points in the circuit. Okay? An ideal voltmeter is one which has infinitely high resistance. Its resistance is very high. We generally take it as infinity. Okay? See, that should be the resistance of an ideal voltmeter. You cannot use galvanometer directly as voltmeter because it has a very less resistance. Its resistance ranging from 50 ohm to 120 ohm under laboratory condition. So the pointer galvanometer that we use in the laboratory usually ranges from 50 ohm to 120 ohm. See, therefore, with that small resistance, you cannot use galvanometer as voltmeter. To use galvanometer as voltmeter, its effective resistance has to be increased. Okay? How resistance can be increased? You know that by connecting very high resistance in series with the galvanometer, you can increase the effective resistance of a galvanometer. Okay? So let me consider a galvanometer of resistance G. We have a galvanometer of resistance G to which a high resistance R is connected. See, the potential difference across this combination is V. Let Ig be the current flowing through the combination. So then what is the total resistance? G is the resistance of the galvanometer. Resistance of galvanometer means what? Resistance of coil of the galvanometer. G plus R gives you total resistance. Ig is the current flowing through the combination. V is the potential difference. Using Ohm's law, we can write like this. Or I can write V by Ig is equal to G plus R. This implies R is equal to V by Ig minus G. So V is what? Range of voltmeter required. So you are converting galvanometer to voltmeter. What range of voltmeter is required? That indicates V. Suppose you want 0 to 3 volt range voltmeter. So therefore put 3 here. And what is Ig here? Current required to produce full scale deflection in the galvanometer. Usually in the galvanometer, pointer coincides with 0 when no current is passing through it. For a particular value of current, galvanometer shows full scale deflection. See, that is indicated by Ig. And this is what G. G is the resistance of the galvanometer. So therefore here V stands for range of voltmeter required. Voltmeter required. Range of voltmeter required. And what is Ig? Current required to produce. Current required to produce. Required to produce full scale deflection. Full scale deflection. Full scale deflection in the galvanometer. Deflection in the galvanometer. Full scale deflection in the galvanometer. See, what is G? G is the resistance of the galvanometer. Resistance of galvanometer. Resistance of galvanometer. Have you understood? What is a voltmeter? Voltmeter is a device which is used to measure potential difference across any 2 points in the circuit. We cannot use galvanometer directly as voltmeter because galvanometer has a coil resistance of about 50 ohm to 120 ohm. Its resistance is smaller. But for an ideal voltmeter, resistance should be infinitely large. It should be very, very high. So therefore, you cannot directly use galvanometer as a voltmeter. To use galvanometer as a voltmeter, its effective resistance has to be increased. Let R be the very high resistance connected in series with the coil of the galvanometer. Okay, so that this combination works as voltmeter. Okay, let V be the potential difference across this combination, Ig be the current flowing in this combination. So then according to Ohm's law we can write V is equal to Ig into G plus R, or V by Ig is equal to G plus R is equal to V by Ig minus G. Here G is the resistance of coil of the galvanometer, V is the range of voltmeter required. If you want 3 volt, put 3 here. If you want 5 volt range, put 5 there. Okay. Ig is the current required to produce full scale deflection on the galvanometer. For what current galvanometer needle shows full scale deflection? See, that is Ig. Putting all these values, calculate the value of R. Now you just take such resistance and connect that resistance in series with the galvanometer, and now your galvanometer behaves exactly like voltmeter. You can compare this with a standard voltmeter. See, that way galvanometer can be converted into voltmeter. So now let us understand conversion of galvanometer to ammeter. Conversion of galvanometer to ammeter. What is ammeter? Ammeter is a device which is used to measure strength of current flowing in a circuit. Okay, it is used to measure strength of current flowing in a circuit. An ideal ammeter is one which has a zero resistance. Since galvanometer has an appreciable resistance of 50 to 120 ohm, it cannot be directly used as ammeter. Okay, it cannot be directly used to measure current because it has certain resistance. But for an ideal ammeter, resistance is zero. See, if you want to use galvanometer as ammeter, then you must connect very small resistance in parallel with the galvanometer. Very small resistance in parallel with the galvanometer. We call this small resistance as shunt. See here, S is called shunt. Shunt is a very small resistance connected in parallel with the galvanometer. So let I be the main current flowing in the circuit, Ig be the current through the galvanometer, remaining current is I minus Ig. Okay. See, therefore in parallel combination you know that potential difference remains same. See, therefore Igg is equal to I minus Ig into S. I want to know what is the value of shunt required. See, therefore S is equal to Igg divided by I minus Ig. See here, I stands for range of ammeter required. You want to convert galvanometer to ammeter. What range of ammeter required? 0 to 3 ampere or 0 to 5 ampere or 0 to 10 milliampere. See, that should be taken as I. Ig as usual, current required to produce full scale deflection, and G as usual, what is G? The resistance of coil of the galvanometer. Okay, by putting all these values, calculate S. Now you choose such resistance and connect it parallel to the galvanometer. Now your galvanometer works like an ammeter. See, this is about conversion of galvanometer to ammeter. What is an ammeter? Ammeter is a device which is used to measure very small current or generally strength of current flowing in the circuit. An ideal ammeter is one which has practically zero resistance. We cannot use galvanometer directly to measure current because galvanometer coil has a resistance of about 50 ohm to 120 ohm, 100 or 120 ohm. To reduce the resistance of the galvanometer, a very low resistance is connected in parallel with that. We call this low resistance as shunt. Let us calculate what is the value of shunt. See here, If I is the main current, Ig is the current through galvanometer, I minus Ig is the current through shunt. Therefore, we can write Igg is equal to I minus Ig into S, or S is equal to Igg by I minus Ig. Putting all these values, calculate the value of shunt, substitute in this equation. Okay, you will get the value for shunt. Now connect that shunt parallel with the galvanometer. Now your galvanometer works like a meter. This is about conversion of galvanometer to a meter. Now let us compare voltmeter and ammeter. What is a voltmeter? Voltmeter is a device used to measure potential difference across any 2 points in the circuit. Ammeter is a device used to measure strength of current flowing in the circuit. The resistance of ideal voltmeter is infinity. The resistance of ideal ammeter is 0. It is always connected across any 2 points in the circuit in parallel. It is always connected in series in a given circuit. It is nothing but a galvanometer with very high resistance in series. It is nothing but a galvanometer with a very low resistance in parallel. This is the comparison between ammeter and voltmeter. Okay, so this completes the discussion on pointer galvanometer and its conversion to ammeter and voltmeter. Now we shall solve few problems related to this. Let us take one or two problems related to conversion of galvanometer to voltmeter and ammeter. A galvanometer has a coil resistance as a coil resistance 5 ohm and requires 15 milliampere current for full scale deflection How will you convert this galvanometer to an ammeter of range 0 to 15 0 to 1 ampere 0 to 1 ampere. See, now let me consider galvanometer. To this shunt is connected. I is the main current, Ig is the current through galvanometer, I minus Ig is the current through the shunt. What is the value of shunt? S is equal to Igg by I minus Ig. Here G is given as 5 ohm. And what is Ig? Ig is 15 milliampere, 15 milliampere, 0.015 ampere. And what is I? I is 1 ampere. Now substitute in this equation. See, therefore S is equal to Ig is 0.015 into 5 divided by 1 minus 0.015. What you are going to get? 0.076 ohm. Yes, comes out to be 0. Therefore, by connecting 0.076 ohm in parallel to galvanometer, we can measure current of range 0 to 1 ampere. 0 to 1 ampere. Let me take another problem. A galvanometer has a coil resistance of 50 ohm and it requires 20 milliamperes for full scale deflection. How will you convert this galvanometer to voltmeter of range 0 to 30 volt? Zero to 30 volt. See here, we have to connect very high resistance in series with the galvanometer. The potential difference is V. Ig is the current flowing through the combination. What is R? R is equal to V by Ig minus G. Here V is equal to 30 volt. What is Ig? Ig is equal to 20 milliampere, 20 into 10 raised to minus 3. And galvanometer resistance is 50 ohm. Now substitute R is equal to 30 divided by 20 into 10 raised to minus 3 minus 50. This comes out to be 1.5 into 10 raised to 3 minus 50. 1500 minus 50 gives you 1450 ohm. Okay. See, therefore by connecting 1450 ohm in series with galvanometer, we can measure potential difference of range 0 to 30 volt. 0 to 30. Now let me take up another problem. When a galvanometer having 30 divisions scale and 100 ohm resistance connected in series with 200 ohm shows a full scale deflection find the figure of merit of galvanometer in microampere per division. The reciprocal of current sensitivity is called figure of merit. Remember, figure of merit is reciprocal of current sensitivity of a galvanometer. See, first we shall calculate what is Ig. So you know that Ig is equal to potential differences when a galvanometer 100 connected in series with 3 volt with a battery of 3 volt through 200 ohm. See, that was missing. E divided by G plus R. What is E? 3 volt. G is 100. External resistance is 200. See, this gives you 3 by 300 ampere. See, this is 1 by 100 ampere or 0.01 ampere. We have to find out figure of merit. But we know that Ig is equal to N into K, where N is number of divisions, total number of divisions, and K is figure of merit. Therefore, K is equal to Ig by N. Ig is 0.01 divided by 30. What you are going to get? See, this is 1 by 3 into 10 raised to minus 3. See, this can be written as 334.3 microampere per division. Microampere per division. See, what is figure of merit? Reciprocal of current sensitivity is called figure of merit of galvanometer. Reciprocal of current sensitivity is called figure of merit of galvanometer. See, it is expressed in terms of ampere per division. Here I have expressed in terms of microampere. They ask in microampere per division. See, therefore express this. A galvanometer of coil resistance 100 ohm gives a full scale deflection for a current of 20 milliampere. How do you convert this galvanometer to voltmeter of range 0 to 6 volt, ammeter of range 0 to 3 ampere. First let us take to convert galvanometer to voltmeter. A high resistance should be connected in series. A high resistance should be connected in series. R is equal to V by Ig minus G. Here V is equal to 6, Ig 20 milliampere, G 100 ohm. R is equal to 6 by 20 into 10 raised to minus 3 minus 100. This is how much? 6000 by 20. 6000 by 20 minus 100. This becomes 200 ohm. 200 ohm. To convert galvanometer to ammeter, a low resistance, yes, should be connected in parallel. S is equal to IgG by I minus Ig. Here I is equal to 3 ampere. See, therefore 20 into 10 raised to minus 3 into 100 divided by 3 minus 20 into 10 raised to minus 3. This comes out to be 2 divided by 3 minus 0.02. 2 divided by 2.98. See, this is about 0.67 ohm, approximately equal to 3. 2 by 3 gives you 0.67 ohm or 0.68 ohm. This is yes. Have you understood? See, in this way we can convert galvanometer to ammeter, galvanometer to voltmeter. See, we will conduct the experiments in the laboratory, conversion of galvanometer to voltmeter as well as ammeter. You are also going to calculate what is the figure of merit. Okay, let me stop at this stage. This completes the discussion on moving charges and magnetism. Since chapter 4 is completed. Okay, in the next class we shall take up competitive part, the additional formulae which are related to solve some problems from the point of view of competitive examination. Thank you.